Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. And to get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a YouTube message. The first question for today comes from Kobe, and it is, do you think that the engineer, and only the engineers, could have a hot wire gadget to get into civilian vehicles and drive them around? This is an awesome idea. DICE has always been about trying to make their worlds feel more dynamic and alive. That's the reason why they have destruction. You can raise and lower bollards. You can bring down a skyscraper in Siege of Shanghai. But one of the things that has always irked me about this whole Levolution thing is that on a map like Siege of Shanghai, there are all of these civilian vehicles everywhere, but you can't drive any of them. I realize this does make a little bit of sense because most people are going to keep their keys on their person, and they're not just going to keep it in their cars for some random person to come by and just steal their car and drive away with it. But at the same time, it would be amazing if one of the classes had the option to jumpstart one of these vehicles and then drive around the battlefield, so it's not just a static cover. I honestly think that this would work perfectly for something like Battlefield Hardline. In Hardline, there is literally a faction in the game full of criminals. It's cops versus criminals, and it would only make sense that at least someone in that criminal enterprise would have the know-how to be able to steal one of these vehicles. And so not only from a gameplay standpoint would this be incredible, because if we're behind enemy lines and we have no modes of transportation, we could just mosey on over to one of these civilian vehicles, jump in, maybe have to go through a quick little 5-second animation or something like that so it's not too ridiculous, but jumpstart the car and then drive it to where we want to go. This would also improve the usefulness or the effectiveness of the engineer class in Hardline, because I don't know if you remember this, but the engineer wasn't necessarily useless, but it felt like it was one of the weaker classes in the game. And so if they had the option to just jumpstart any vehicle on the map and take advantage of it, that could be a nifty perk available to that one class and would further define the role as a criminal enterprise. And so I personally think that this is amazing. I know that this has been something that the Battlefield community has wanted for a very, very long time now. It would be a useful gameplay mechanic. You could take advantage of these vehicles to get from point A to point B, but it would also make the world feel more alive, and it honestly could just be another selling point for Levolution. And I know they're all about Levolution, so fantastic idea. The next question comes from Voluminous Rocket, and it is, what are your thoughts about the pre-order sales for Call of Duty Advanced Warfare? They are nowhere near as high as they used to be for past Call of Duty games. Do you think that this is the decline of the franchise? Well, I wouldn't say that this is the end of Call of Duty, or this is the decline of Call of Duty, because I think that Call of Duty Advanced Warfare is going to do phenomenally well. Let's be honest, it's a CoD game, it's going to sell oodles and oodles of money, and they're going to make billions of dollars. What it really does indicate, though, is just simply the decline of pre-order sales across the board and across the industry. What I'm taking this as is that people are finally getting smart and they're realizing that there's no reason to be pre-ordering games right now. That wasn't necessarily the case in the past. There were times, I want to say 10 years ago, where you pre-ordered a game so that when you got to the brick and mortar store, you went to GameStop or something like that, they would have the copy for you on day one. They would ensure that the copy would be there, you could go in, you could pay your money, and you could go home and play the game on day one. There were times in the past when that simply wouldn't happen. There were a lot of moments when I would go to a store, I was scared of calling them on the phone, I don't know why, I was a stupid little kid. I would show up and they'd be like, I'm sorry, buddy, there's no more copies, you're gonna have to go try somewhere else. And that sucks. No one wants to go to a store and be told that they don't have a product. And so the incentive then was to pre-order the game to ensure that you could have it on day one. That doesn't really happen all that often anymore. There are so many game distributors out there. You got Walmart, Target, GameStop, everyone is going to be selling these games. And if you go out, even on day one, you're probably gonna find a copy of the game that you were looking for. And so I think what it comes down to is that people are finally understanding that there's just no reason to be pre-ordering these games, especially when they have no idea if they're good or not. The only time I would ever advocate that you pre-order a a title is if it gives you a discount and you know 100% certain that you're gonna buy that game no matter what the reviews are. No matter if the game is a pile of crap, it's mediocre or amazing, you know that you're gonna purchase that game and you're gonna love it and you're gonna put your money down right now because you wanna support the developers. That is the only time I could say that, yep, okay, I can see why you pre-ordered that title. For everything else, doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I don't care what knick-knack GameStop gives you in-game, some stupid side quest, some stupid lock DLC at day one. I hate GameStop's policy. Don't care what they give you. If it's not a discount and you don't know 100% that you are going to purchase that title, there is no reason to pre-purchase these games. And so while this could be an indication that the Call of Duty franchise is on the decline, I think it's just the overall trend of pre-order sales to begin with. Like, across the board, pre-order sales are down. I think it's because consumers are getting smarter. I hope it's because consumers are getting smarter, and it's just not a priority to get your games on day one, at least through those methods. The next question comes from Noah, and it is, what do you think about different types of ammunition for jets, like HE rounds, so that they can take out infantry easier? I like where your head is going with this, because while there are a couple of ways that you can customize the jets to your playstyle, you can tailor it to the role that you're looking for, when you really get down to it, the attack jet is a very basic vehicle. You have, you know, the Zuni rockets you can lock on if you're using the anti-air, but what it really comes down to, and the main thing that you are going to take out enemies with, is your main cannon, and you can't customize that at all. But also, that thing destroys everything on the battlefield. That thing is a beast. It doesn't matter if it's a helicopter, a jet, a tank down on the ground, a boat, an infantry unit. If you're good enough, and you have probably encountered someone who is good enough in the attack jet, it feels like the ultimate god vehicle in the game, just throwing thunderbolts everywhere, just killing everyone. Like, it's disgusting how powerful this vehicle is. And so I guess what I would like to see, even before we get into the whole customization debate, which I think is a good one, I think what you recommend is solid. I think before they started to do that, they need to fine tailor the role of the attack jet compared to the stealth jet. I think the stealth jet, as it is right now, is fantastic. Like, it gets the job done. It is the anti-air vehicle up in the sky. It's got that maneuverability. It is a little bit more agile than the attack jet, so that is one thing it has over that vehicle. But like, at least for me, like, this is just my personal experience, I gravitate more towards the attack jet, even for air-to-air combat, because that main cannon does so much damage against everything on the ground. And so I guess what I would like to see is a further refinement of the attack jet so that it doesn't do as well to air-to-air combat, but is amazing at taking out everything down on the ground. And then we can start to get to your question and talk more about customization. What I would really like to see is exactly what you recommended, where there would be one round that would have some nice explosive damage. It would just rip through the bodies of the enemy infantry down on the ground, but the downside of it is that it wouldn't be very effective, or wouldn't be as effective at taking out tanks and boats and things like that, heavily armored vehicles. On the other hand, you could have another round which is amazing at taking out those heavily armored vehicles, but terrible at taking out infantry, and you have to be as accurate as you are right now if you want to be able to take out infantry units. Then all of a sudden, we resemble basically every other vehicle in the game, where they have their niche, but in their niche, they can tailor the role that they're looking for. The best example of that I can think of are the tanks. If you want to play as an anti-infantry tank, you have the customization to do that. You can use the canister shell, the light machine gun, you go to town on enemy infantry that tries to block your way. Like, you are just gonna rip through them. On the other hand, if you want to be an anti-tank vehicle, slap on the HE rounds and staff shell, do some amazing direct damage against enemy vehicles with the HE rounds, snipe enemy tanks at a distance with the staff shell, and you are now a beast of an anti-tank vehicle. You're gonna suck when you start to go against enemy infantry though. Like, enemy infantry with their RPGs are gonna be the bane of your existence, but that is the trade-off of all of this customization. And then if you wanna go something in between, you can use like the Sabo rounds and the light machine gun. That is how you balance out a vehicle. The big picture about this though is that's the niche of the tank. It's good at taking out ground vehicles, but as soon as you start to try to take out helicopters and jets up in the sky, it's not necessarily worthless. Like, you can see some people use the Sabo rounds to get some incredible snipes off, but that's not the design or the purpose of the tank. The purpose and the niche of the tank is ground combat. You apply that same design philosophy and that same balance philosophy on over into the attack jet, and it goes out the window. The attack jet, as of right now, at least with its main cannon, does too much damage to everything. It doesn't have a refined role, and it's, in my opinion, the god vehicle in the game. Some of you might disagree, but in my opinion, it is just a little bit too powerful. And so I guess what I'm getting at is that for a future Battlefield title like Battlefield 5 or in Bad Company 3, for whatever reason, if they wanted to add jets, to have it so that there is a distinct role between the attack jet and the stealth jet, make it so that the attack jet is great at taking out ground targets, and then allow customization to tailor it even further to be good at infantry against tanks or a little bit in between. I think if they got that right, or they settled in that location, the balance and the dynamic between air combat would be far better than what we have in Battlefield 4, and I just think in general it would be a superior system. Just my 2 cents though. The next question for today comes from Stephen North, and it is, do you think that games that have been released for early access will die out once they are fully developed? Well, we probably won't know exactly the result of all of these early access games, because while early access isn't necessarily the newest thing, like, it's been around for a while, betas have been around forever, it's pretty massive right now, especially for the PC market. And so for multiplayer games, developers need to walk a fine line, because while the results aren't conclusive, I don't think there's been any studies yet, the thing that they need to worry about is that if they launch their early access multiplayer, a lot of people jump in at the start, well, it's not a finished product, so they may play for a couple of hours, realize it's not a finished product, and move on to something else. Then months roll by, a year rolls by, they launch their title, now they don't have anyone playing the game because they all purchased during the early access. They don't want to go back to a game they've already played. They think it's like old news now. And so that multiplayer that thrives on a multiplayer community, like, it needs players to have fun and it needs players to grow, they have a harder time selling more copies simply because no one's playing the game, all because they decided to go down the early access route. Developers need to think hard, especially for multiplayer. I don't think it's much of a deal for single player because they already got your money. It's a single player game, you know, who cares at that point? But especially for a multiplayer game that thrives off a multiplayer community and needs players in there for it to sell more games, it's going to be tough for those developers, and they need to think hard if the early access is the way to go about it. Once again, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. We're probably going to have to wait a couple of years before these results are conclusive and we have a lot more examples, but that's just my whole gut feeling on the matter. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, if you would like to submit your own question that can be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below. I would say that you can send a YouTube message, but it seems that YouTube is phasing out their messaging system. I'm not exactly sure why. And so if a comment for whatever reason doesn't tickle your fancy, you can also send me a message on Twitter or Facebook. But yeah, guys, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.